The story begins by introducing us to the gigantic world tree that stands at the center of everything. In this place, many different races live in harmony with one another. Together, they form the vast continent of Huguenot, a place full of life and mystery, but not all is peaceful, as a war between humans and demons plagues these lands. This fierce battle has grown more and more intense in recent years. The humans were in a desperate fight, as their attacks had no effect on the demons. However, a turning point was about to happen in the midst of all that chaos. A light of hope appeared on the battlefield, bringing with it ancient and forgotten magics. Using these powers, they were able to overcome the army of monsters with ease. Those who rushed across the battlefield brought hope back to humanity. Because of their heroic deeds, people began to call them by a special name. They were the Grimoires myths, the forgers of grimoires, and the salvation of the people. Back in the present, we see a wall under attack, and the soldiers are firing the cannons. With that, a huge explosion goes off on the enemy's front line. Then a soldier orders the archers not to let the creatures climb the wall. A flaming arrow hits one of the climbing monsters right in the eye. Even with the arrow stuck in its head, the creature remains on its feet with a smile on its face. And another demon approaches a human with a very menacing look. One of the guards panics and starts screaming in despair at what he's seeing. It turns out the wall was being overrun by a horde of furious monsters. The claws of one of the creatures reach the top of the wall, leaving a soldier in shock. Soon the horrendous creature appears in full, revealing its bizarre appearance. At that moment, the guard is paralyzed with fear, unable to show any reaction. But suddenly, a hooded figure appears in front of him with a book in hand. The newcomer uses a spell called Grand Reflection to protect the soldier. A beam of light then hits the monsters, throwing them far from the wall. The mysterious man then tells the guard to rest, as he is safe now. Then, two more heroes arrive on the scene and ask if everyone is okay. The group apologizes for being late and praises the humans for holding on. The soldiers are impressed, and one of them says he can't stop shaking. The hooded leader observes the situation in silence, looking very calm. His companions are an elf named El and a swordsman known as Raz. The swordsman then tells them to advance, while the mage prepares his next spell. The elf then readies one of his arrows, imbuing it with wind magic. He draws the bowstring with the arrow glowing intensely in a greenish hue. With a focused gaze, the archer carefully aims at the enemies down below. He prepares to shoot, his face showing total concentration on the target. The elf shoots, and his arrow multiplies, hitting several monsters at once. Meanwhile, the mage shows off his magic rings, which glow with immense power. He positions himself on the edge of the wall, ready to cast his own devastating magic. He uses the book and creates a tornado that throws all the monsters into the air. After that, the elf looks very tired, having used a lot of energy in the battle. Meanwhile, his friends remain ready to fight, the warrior's sword glowing. The group's leader then jumps very high, preparing for his next attack. He touches one of the gems on his grimoire to activate a new ability. The book begins to glow intensely with purple, lightning-filled energy. Next, another gem on the book begins to emit a very strong golden light. Then, purple and yellow energies emerge from the grimoire, mixing in the air. The white-haired young man then creates a huge sphere of power above his head. With a swift motion, the sphere is shot into the heavens like a great beam of light. The magic hits the sky and begins to spread, creating a massive wave of energy. The mage extends his hand to the sky, controlling all the power of that spell. He uses the spell called Rain of Karavnos, a thunder and rain ability. With his eyes glowing purple, he concentrates to unleash his full power. Then, a shower of purple lightning rains down from the sky, hitting all the monsters below. His companions are impressed by the scene and find it all terrifying. After the attack, the hooded young man closes his book, satisfied with the result. Then he calmly walks down the stairs of the wall as if nothing had happened. He says it's all over, as the threat was completely eliminated with his strike. The soldier is speechless, as they couldn't even scratch those creatures. All the demons that were attacking the wall were wiped out with a single attack. The group watches the sky as a strange magic circle appears on the horizon. One of the guards looks at the mage and says that now he understands what's happening. He realizes that the color of the young man's hair and the light from the spell are familiar. The soldier finally remembers the rumors about the White Wolf Griemeyer's myth. Suddenly, someone on the wall starts shouting, getting their attention. It was the Human Kingdom's support army that had just arrived to help. The mage decides it's time to leave and leave the rest to the reinforcements. But before leaving, he hands a paper to the soldier, who is very confused. The young man asks if they can pass, as they need to continue their journey to another place. The guard doesn't understand anything and wonders what that travel permit is. The group's leader reveals that their next destination is the Dragon Kingdom. With a snap of his fingers, a ball of light is launched into the air. The light explodes in the sky like a firework, clearing a path for them. And so, the trio of heroes sets off toward the rising sun on their new journey. The elf throws himself on the ground and asks if the magic stone they're looking for really exists. His swordsman friend says he doesn't believe they'll find something like that so easily. Raz states that he will follow Master Alan no matter what happens along the way. The elf complains that his friend is too serious as he leaves him behind. Alan looks back as the blonde guy shouts for them not to leave him alone. The elf clings to the swordsman who, annoyed, tells him to get away while letting out a laugh. From a distance, the group's leader just watches the scene with a slight smile on his face. Then Alan decides to get his companions Elle and Raz's attention to keep moving. With a determined look, the mage tells them to get going, as the journey is long. The two look at each other as it's said that their goal is the beginning of the whole world. And so, the trio sets off in search of the primal mana stone to complete their mission. Elsewhere, it is explained that among the continent's jewels, there are some special ones. Very rarely, gems are found that house ancient, long-forgotten magics. Because of their power, these rare jewels are known as magic stones. The scene changes to a ballroom where a nobleman is throwing a grand party, but underground, enslaved people are forced to polish stones in terrible working conditions. The sound of a clock echoes through the place, indicating that the day's shift is over. A boy with black and white hair says that's enough for today and puts his stone away, but a guard catches him and asks what the heck that is, as it's not well polished. The man complains that with junk like that, they won't make any money. With a mocking smile, the supervisor shows a perfectly polished and shiny gem. He says that if they're going to polish stones, they need to make them beautiful like that one. The boy then tries to grab the jewel from the guard's hand, who is very surprised. He refuses to hand over the stone he was holding before being interrupted. The young man says he was still in the middle of polishing that one before getting shoved. On the ground, the boy glares at the supervisor, who asks if it's him again, with a trickle running from the corner of his mouth. He continues looking at the man. His eyes glow, and the irritated guard says that look really gets on his nerves. The supervisor asks if he thinks he's all that just because he's good at polishing stones. Angrily, the man shoves the boy, who was on the ground, with his foot. The young man curls up from the impact, as the supervisor says he needs to be taught a lesson. He grabs the boy's hair and says he can polish everyone's stones. With a strange smile, the young man tells the man to let that decide how many there will be. Then the two guards start roughing up the boy, without any mercy. One of the hits lands right on the boy's face, but he doesn't seem to react. After they're done, they leave him on the floor and tell the others to go to their beds. With great difficulty, the young man drags himself over to the supervisors, who stare at him. He touches one of their shoulders and says that was only 3 hits so far. The man is confused, and the young man asks him to hit him 3 more times before he goes. With his eyes glowing pink, he reminds the guard of the deal they made earlier. Startled, the supervisor shoves him and yells at the boy not to touch him, but the young man insists and clings to the man, asking for more. He keeps begging for more, and the guard asks if he's gone crazy. Out of patience, the 2 men start roughing him up again, even harder. Even while being pushed around, the young man's gaze remains firm as he yells for them to back off. An old man, who is also enslaved, just watches the scene as he gets shoved by the guard. Next, the boy is thrown forcefully into a dark, cold cell. He sits on the floor alone and hurt, next to another unconscious prisoner. A light enters through the dungeon window, illuminating the gloomy environment a little. Upon waking, the young man realizes it's already morning and that he got a little too carried away. He remembers with a smile the many colors of stones he has seen, like red and yellow. It was the first time he had seen a light blue jewel, and he felt it was denser than the others. Holding the gem in his hand, he admires it, thinking how beautiful it was. He wishes he could see more types of stones, if they would just let him polish them normally. Suddenly, a furious gaze appears in the darkness, staring intently at him. The guard appears at the cell and yells for everyone to get out because it's time to work. The old man from before approaches and asks the boy if he can stand up. The young man replies that he can, and the old man carefully helps him up. The other prisoners find the old man's attitude strange, as he had never spoken to the boy. Going up the stairs, he thinks that since he arrived, no one had ever spoken to him. Back at the polishing tables, the old man sits next to him in silence. The boy asks if he needs something, and the old man replies, "Just a little." The supervisor arrives and warns him to polish the stones properly today, and the boy agrees. The man still threatens him, saying he'll get a beating if he catches him dozing off again. The young man ignores the threat and focuses on the stone he holds in his hands. He analyzes a purple stone, wondering if the color is mixed with a dark red. With an eager smile, he can hardly wait to see how the jewel will look after being polished. The old man beside him then asks why he did that with the guards. The boy replies that he's trying to concentrate, but the old man insists on the question. Not understanding at all, the young man turns and asks what the old man means by that. He says it was nothing and that he just wanted to polish stones because that's what he likes. The boy reveals he never saw anything beautiful in the alleys where he grew up as an orphan. In his past, he only fought to survive and felt like an empty shell. He admits that being treated as an enslaved person in that place is a living nightmare, but as long as he's there, he can polish these mysterious and fascinating stones. The old man stares at him with a serious and questioning expression after hearing his story. He asks if the boy got beat up and sacrificed his sleep just for those stones. Annoyed, the young man tells the old man to leave him alone, as what he likes is none of his business. He then says he just really likes the beauty of those small, mysterious jewels. The old man picks up a rough stone and asks if he finds this little pebble beautiful. The boy's eye gleams, and he says the more you polish it, the more the inner pattern shines. The old man is surprised and admits that watching the stones glow makes him feel calmer. Shocked, he asks how the boy can see that, and the young man doesn't understand his surprise. The old man becomes thoughtful, stroking his beard, and says he understands the situation now. With a different look, he thinks that this boy might have what it takes. The old man explains that what the boy sees is actually a very ancient magic. The special jewels that hold this power are known as magic stones. In short, incredible magic is inside them and can be used with a grimoire. But the ones they polish there are just a small fraction of the cheapest ones that exist. The boy is surprised and asks if there are other beautiful stones in other places. The young man's hair even stands on end as the older man confirms that there are. Out there in the world, there are magic stones with the power of wind, fire, and water. There are countless magic stones with all kinds of magic, far more than the ones they polish. The boy understands that the world is full of all kinds of magic stones. He wonders if there are many more than what they have in that place. The young man calls out to the old man and asks him to tell him more about the magic stones. He asks where he can find them, and the old man says he first needs to get out of there. The mere thought of leaving that place leaves the boy in complete shock. Suddenly, something happens, and the old man is thrown to the ground, dropping a stone. The boy runs to help the old man as a nobleman asks who was talking about leaving. Suddenly, a man in noble's clothing appears, holding a beautiful grimoire. The book in his hand has a luxurious appearance and seems to be very powerful. The boy is frozen, looking at the man who appeared out of nowhere. Surrounded by guards, the nobleman asks where the prisoner thinks he's going. His green eyes shine with anger as he glares at the two enslaved people. The young man remains paralyzed, not quite understanding what is happening there. The man scoffs, saying he didn't imagine he still had the energy to think about that. with hatred in his eyes. The old man says that man's name, calling him Malik. He says that man has a lot of nerve to appear in front of him. The nobleman just stares at him with a very mocking smile on his face. The boy asks if they know each other, and the older man confirms they do. With a serious look, the old man reveals that Malik has strayed from the path of mages. He calls him a traitor, and the nobleman pretends to be offended by the accusation. The villain says they worked together as mages for over 30 years. The old man confirms it's true as he clenches his fist tightly. A flashback shows the two when they were younger and how the old man always trusted the villain. The memory continues, showing the two having fun together at a party. But everything changed 2 weeks ago when a girl was taken hostage. The old man accuses Malik of using the girl to steal his book and sell stones. As the head of the Grimoire Mages, he says he cannot forgive that betrayal. The nobleman laughs and calls his former friend a hypocrite to his face. He reveals that the old man's granddaughter was taken hostage because he was too soft. We find out that the old man is a genius who has mastered more than 10 types of ancient magic. Because of his power, he is known as the orchestrator of miracles. His grimoire glows intensely, showing just how powerful he truly is. The villain mocks him, saying that without that book, he's nothing but a weak and useless old man. With hatred in his eyes, the old man tells the man to get his filthy hands off his book. Malik repeats the mage's words with a sneering and sarcastic smile. He says he thought he could use the grimoire's power, but was unsuccessful. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't summon the ancient magic on the same level. Annoyed, the villain throws the book on the ground, calling it useless junk, and the jewels glow. The boy wonders what that is. As the book and the beautiful stones are glowing, the jewels scattered on the floor emit a strong, colorful light that illuminates the place. The boy's eyes shine, and his heart races uncontrollably at the sight. He feels a strong connection to these magical objects, as if they were a part of him. A cosmic vision shows that the young man feels as if the stones are calling to him. He realizes that the mage's strength doesn't come from those magical tools on the floor. The boy wonders where the old man's power comes from, since it's not from the book. Malik then understands that his former friend's true power comes from his eyes. The villain shouts the mage's name, which is Klaus, and tells him to spill his secret already. He grabs him and asks how he can perceive the power of the magic stones. Klaus tries to resist and pushes the villain away with the boy's help. But one of the guards attacks him from behind, hitting him with a strong blow. The young man shouts for the old man, while one of the henchmen holds him back. Defeated and on his knees, Klaus glares at his former companion with contempt. He says that even if he told him the secret, the villain wouldn't be able to see it. The mage insults him, saying his eyes are clouded and full of greed. Malik becomes furious with the provocation and calls him every name in the book. He grabs the old man's hair and calls him an arrogant, hypocritical wretch. The villain says that right now, he's nothing more than fragile and helpless trash. He threatens him, saying he will use him as a test subject to steal his power. The nobleman wants to take Klaus's eyes and power for himself, no matter what. He swears he will do whatever it takes to get what he wants as the guards grab the book. Malik turns his back on his former friend and begins to walk away. He picks up a lit candle that was in a holder on the dungeon wall. With a quick motion, the villain throws the candle toward the magical objects. The boy watches the scene, shocked by the nobleman's cruel and unexpected action. The candle flies through the air and lands exactly on top of the grimoire on the floor. Klaus screams in despair and asks what Malik thinks he's doing with his book. The villain says if the power doesn't come from the book, then it's no longer useful. With a wicked smile, he states he'll make sure Klaus never thinks of escaping again. The guards hold the mage tightly as he screams for the villain to stop. The flames consume the grimoire and the magic stones that were with it. The fire spreads, and one of the jewels flies toward the boy, who is paralyzed. The glowing stone stops right in front of his face, and his eyes widen. The boy runs toward the flames, and Klaus watches him, shocked by his action. Without a second thought, the young man throws himself into the middle of the fire, surprising everyone. Even with his hands burning, he endures the pain to grab the magical items. With his face sweating, He thinks that he has to save the stones no matter what. He then starts picking up all the magic stones that were scattered on the floor. Klaus desperately shouts for the boy to get the book, which is also burning. The boy remains kneeling in the middle of the flames, completely focused on his mission. One of the guards tries to put out the fire with his foot and tells the boy to stop it. Malik grabs him furiously and asks what that brat thinks he's doing. The villain gets a look of hatred as smoke rises from the extinguished fire, but the young man holds the man's leg and, with a threatening look, tells him not to interfere. With a shove, the boy manages to get free from the guard and goes back to the fire. He reaches his hand toward the grimoire to try to save it from the flames. With a face full of determination, he tries his best to reach the book. Finally, the boy manages to grab the flaming grimoire with his bare hands. With a smile on his face, he stretches out his arm to grab the valuable object. The moment he touches the book, a very strong golden light begins to shine. The young man is completely engulfed in a pillar of light and fire that rises to the heavens. Klaus watches the scene in shock and wonders if the boy could be who he imagines. Inside the light, the boy is confused, not understanding what is happening to him. He feels his body burning from the inside, as if he were in a whirlwind of fire. His eyes glow red, and he sees everything around him shining intensely. A sphere of brilliant energy appears, and he feels like he can do anything now. Malik can't believe what he's seeing and says that is completely impossible. Klaus's granddaughter watches from a distance and wonders how an enslaved boy became a grimoire-smith. The villain becomes desperate with the situation and starts yelling at his henchmen. He orders one of the guards to bring him the book the boy is holding. Malik himself then runs to grab the grimoire from the young man's hands right now. The boy holds the glowing book, which seems to have connected with him somehow. Determined, he opens his grimoire and says he won't let the book fall into Klaus's hands. The villain uses a water spell to attack the boy who has awakened his powers, but the young man uses the grimoire and casts a water spell called Aqua Deviled. The villain also uses his book to control the water and create a powerful attack. The nobleman's water attack advances to put out the fire protecting the boy, but the young man's spell creates a water barrier that protects him from the attack. Malik is shocked once again, as he didn't expect the boy to know how to defend himself. Next, an explosion of light happens where the boy is, blinding everyone. He looks at the flames around him and notices something very surprising. The boy discovers he can move the fire and creates a wall of flames with his hands. The villain is perplexed and wonders what's so special about that boy. The villain is shocked because the newly awakened young man can already manipulate magic. With the grimoire in hand, the boy kneels, surrounded by the flames he now controls. Klaus realizes the boy's special eye can see the letters of ancient magic. He understands that the boy has a very high compatibility with that type of power. With the right stone and book, it's possible to unleash an unimaginable magical force. The old man then thinks that this boy might be an unbelievable prodigy, but he worries because despite his talent, the young man is still an inexperienced rookie. The mage fears that Malik is too strong for him, and that at this rate, things will get worse. The villain launches a water attack that collides with the flames controlled by the boy. Desperate, Klaus shouts for the boy while trying to break free from the guard's hands. The young man then realizes what he needs to do to turn the tide in this battle. With a sweaty face, he thinks he needs to get the book to the old man somehow. He then starts running toward Klaus, leaving a trail of fire behind him. Malik creates a giant wave of water and says he won't let the boy pass. With a furious look, the villain prepares to end this once and for all. The water advances, and the boy prepares to hand over the grimoire before he is hit. The young man throws himself into the air and hurls the book with all his might toward Klaus. The object flies through the air amidst the fire and water clashing on the battlefield. Both are hit head on by the wave of water that floods the entire place. The boy shouts for the old man as he is thrown far away along with the magic stones. Despite being hit, Klaus manages to catch the jewels that were falling in the confusion. A large explosion of light and steam occurs, and Malik just watches the scene. The impact of the explosion throws the young man hard against the dungeon wall. He falls to the ground completely exhausted and hurt. After all that effort, lying there, he whispers Malik's name with a look full of anger and determination. Klaus, now with the grimoire in hand, begins to place the stones in their proper places. With a serious look, he says that Malik's party ends right now. The villain watches him with a slight smile on his face, looking very calm. He asks if the mage really thought someone like him would lose to an old man. A guard then brings in 3 strange children with scars on their heads and enslaved people's clothes. Malik says he brought the new recruits, who seem to be in some kind of trance. Klaus is shocked and asks if those are the other children who were kidnapped. The boy notices something black on one of their shoulders and wonders if it's mana. The villain points to the mark and asks if that's what they were talking about. He presses the black jewel and says he created it especially to defeat Klaus. With a quick motion, the man mercilessly rips the stone from the child's body. The child falls to the ground, and one of the guards kicks their body to the side. The little enslaved child's body lies on the ground, not moving after the attack. The young man and Klaus are horrified by the cruel scene they just witnessed. One of the guards is terrified by his boss's action and calls him a scoundrel. Klaus is horrified and asks if the villain has stooped to performing experiments on people. On the ground, the bodies of the children who were used as test subjects lie still. The boy doesn't understand what the word experimentation means and is very confused. The villain says that as a mage, he just wanted power, and those brats were going to perish like trash anyway. Hatred fills the young man upon hearing the nobleman's cruel and heartless words. Malik approaches one of the victims and says this was for his research. With a smile, he says that being useful for such a sublime study is a great honor. Klaus shouts the traitor's name with great anger, while the other smiles maliciously. A dark, red aura begins to emanate from Malik's body, completely enveloping him. To protect himself, Klaus creates a fire barrier that shields the other enslaved people. With the grimoire in hand, he launches a blast of fire against Malik's attack. The boy watches everything impressed and says that is a mage's true magic. But the villain's dark magic is too strong and begins to swallow Klaus's flames. The mage feels the pressure of the attack and struggles to keep the barrier up. Malik mocks him and says he dreamed of the day he would bring him to his knees. He threatens to use every last drop of his and the boy's blood as new test subjects. Seeing the situation, the boy realizes that at this rate, they won't be able to win. Desperately, he tries to balance himself in the middle of the chaos in the dungeon. The young man then looks at one of the magic stones he managed to save from the fire. He wonders if he can do that again if he uses the stone like before. Klaus's voice echoes in his mind, telling him to remember that unique feeling. The young man understands that a glowing pattern will appear if he concentrates hard. He refuses to be a test subject for the rest of his life and clutches the stone tightly. With a cry of determination, the boy says he will see all the stones. He wants to know all the magic stones that exist outside of that place. With his eyes glowing purple, he focuses all his energy on the jewel in his hand. With a roar of fury, a purple and red energy suddenly explodes from his body. The dark magic envelops the boy as Malik and Klaus watch in shock. The power released is so great that the 2 mages are left speechless at the scene. The villain and Klaus are engulfed by the dark energy that spreads through the place. With a look of pure hatred, he commands that place and the villain to burn to the ground. The boy extends his hand with the stone and unleashes all his magic at once. An explosion of power occurs in the dungeon, throwing all the guards far away. Malik can't believe he used ancient magic without even having a grimoire. The villain spits out some blood and becomes furious because all of that was supposed to be his. The boy tells everything to burn to ashes as he releases even more power. His eyes glow intensely, and the stone in his hand emits a red light. The jewel shines with immense power, filled with a dark and mysterious energy. The aura of fire and darkness continues to expand further and further throughout the dungeon. The stone in the boy's hand transforms into a red, perfectly polished jewel. Klaus realizes the boy is causing the mana stones to go into berserk mode. The villain screams in pain as he tries to control the dark power that is consuming him. He places one of the black jewels in his grimoire to try to amplify his magic. The dark energy transforms into a black liquid that moves toward the young man. Malik yells that he is nothing but an insignificant enslaved boy and launches his attack. The villain's attack clashes with the boy's fire barrier, creating a power struggle. The two magics collide in the center of the dungeon, causing a huge explosion. The nobleman gets angry and says he won't lose to a boy who has just awakened. The dark magic and fire dance across the battlefield in a spectacle of light. The boy concentrates on keeping the barrier firm against the enemy's attack. With a confident smile, the boy faces the villain without any fear in his eyes. Malik's guards stand frozen, not knowing what to do in the midst of all the chaos. The villain yells at them, telling them to do something about that enslaved boy. Claus's granddaughter is also present, and the guards surround her to protect her. The boy realizes he needs to think of a strategy to get out of this situation. One of the guards says it will be a problem if they surround them and suggests a retreat. Another henchman says they need to get the other enslaved people out of there quickly. In that case, the guard decides they need to deal with the boy first. The young man shouts for the old man and asks him to take care of the enslaved people behind them. Claus gets the message and prepares to protect the other prisoners. He turns and watches the enslaved people cowering in fear in the corner of the dungeon. The battle between the boy and the villain continues, with both using all their power. The guards advance to attack the boy, but he repels them with his fire magic. The boy's chain breaks in the middle of the battle, completely freeing him. One of the guards is hit squarely by the flames and screams in pain from the attack. Malik becomes furious and says he won't let a brat like him humiliate him. With the broken chain, the young man can now move freely around the battlefield. The two glare at each other with hatred as the magical battle rages on. Claus helps the other children to their feet and tells them to run now. He clears a path through the flames so the other enslaved people can escape. Claus's granddaughter watches the scene as the villain launches another powerful attack. The man uses his sword to try to cut through the boy's magic but fails. The young man retaliates with a fire attack, and the villain tries to protect himself with his magic. With a face full of determination, the boy continues to fight with everything he has. Claus's granddaughter creates a magic circle to protect herself and the guards. Malik becomes enraged and says it's impossible for him to lose to a mere enslaved boy. She places her hand on the circle and casts a very powerful protection spell. The magic shield shatters from the force of the boy's attack, surprising everyone. The villain is hit by the black jewels he himself created to defeat Claus. With a final scream of pain, the man is consumed by an explosion of fire and darkness. The dark flames and fire dance around the boy, who watches his fallen enemy. The villain gets up with difficulty and faces the young man who ruined all his plans. He touches the dark energy that is hurting him and prepares for one last attack. With a cry of hatred, he tells the boy to perish and launches a sphere of darkness. A sphere of black magic forms around the young man, trapping him inside. Claus's granddaughter watches the giant sphere that closes completely with no way out. The villain smiles, satisfied, thinking he has finally managed to defeat the boy. But suddenly, the sphere begins to crack from the inside out, surprising everyone. The man is thrown far away by the explosion of power that follows. The young man emerges from the shadows and tells the villain not to get in his way again. The man is completely consumed by the flames and screams in pain from the attack. Defeated, the villain falls to the ground unconscious as the boy stands watching him. Claus says he knew the boy had potential but didn't expect so much power. He is impressed because the newly awakened boy managed to defeat an experienced mage. The young man approaches and asks if Malik is a criminal for everything he's done. With a smile, he asks if they can make the villain pay for his crimes. Claus smiles and says they can certainly make that happen right now. He uses a magic stone in his grimoire to cast a teleportation spell. Malik's body is enveloped in a green light and disappears from the dungeon. The old man says to take the man to the surface to be judged. The boy clutches the stone in his hand, and the dark energy begins to dissipate. Exhausted, The young man nearly falls, but Klaus catches him and helps him recover. The old man tells the boy to control himself, because they are leaving that place. Together, they climb the dungeon stairs toward the light of freedom. As they emerge from the darkness, the sunlight greets them with a beautiful, cloud-filled sky. The boy looks at the sky and the broken chain on his neck and says they are free. With a happy smile, he celebrates that they finally managed to get out of there. The young man calls for the old man and asks him to show him where to find the magic stones. But one of the guards points at him and shouts that it was that enslaved boy who set fire to the mansion. In an instant, the boy is surrounded by a group of knights with swords drawn. Next, he is taken to a courtroom to be tried for the crime he didn't commit. A judge bangs the gavel and begins the trial against the young and innocent enslaved boy. He says the defendant is an enslaved person accused of setting fire to Lord Malik's property. With a contemptuous smile, the judge says there is no need for questioning. Without even hesitating, he sentences him to be taken away, and the crowd shouts to get rid of him. The nobles in the audience call him a filthy slave and demand his immediate removal. Two guards approach to take him away, but the boy maintains a defiant look. With clenched teeth, he glares at the judge who unjustly condemned him. Suddenly, a mysterious voice emerges in the courtroom and says they wish to present an objection. A man in noble clothes and glasses appears to defend the boy from the false accusation. The boy turns and recognizes the old man who helped him in the dungeon moments ago. The audience is shocked to recognize the Maestro of Miracles, Lord Klaus. He says that judging someone just for being an enslaved person seems a bit hasty. With a serious look, the mage then addresses His Majesty, the king, directly. On his throne, the king watches the scene in silence, looking very bored with everything. The king says it has been a long time and greets him, calling him by the name of Klaus. He asks why such an important man would try to protect a simple enslaved boy. The young man listens to the conversation in silence next to his unexpected defender. Klaus surprises everyone by saying that this boy is his newest apprentice. The king is completely shocked and repeats the word apprentice, not understanding at all. He gets worked up and shouts if that means an enslaved person has awakened their powers. Klaus then hands the boy the grimoire and a glowing magic stone. The young man holds the magical objects and looks at the mage with a very confused expression. His eyes widen in surprise at the actions of the old man who saved him. With a gentle smile, the old mage encourages him to show his true power. The boy gives a slight smile, because now he understands exactly what he needs to do. He holds the magic stone tightly and prepares for what's to come. He thinks that for these people to listen to him, he needs to show his true worth. The boy needs to prove that he is not just an enslaved person, but someone with power. With a determined look, he vows to show everyone who the real villain is. The guards approach to remove his chains and take him away from there, but the king says if he really is a grimoiresmith, they must listen to him. He becomes thoughtful and seems to consider the possibility of an enslaved person awakening. However, the king says he has never heard of an enslaved person becoming a grimoiresmith. A nobleman in the audience agrees and says they are a very rare existence. Another man says that only a few awaken per year, and that it's impossible for an enslaved person. The boy places the magic stone in the grimoire to prove they are all wrong. A huge wave of water suddenly appears, completely enveloping him in the courtroom. The audience is speechless at the young enslaved boy's demonstration of power. Even the king is surprised by the scene and watches everything very attentively. With a smile, he says that is a very simple water spell to use. The nobleman from before shouts that there must be some mistake, because this can't be real. He says countless nobles wish to become grimoiresmiths and fail. The boy rolls his eyes and mutters that all they know is how to talk blah, blah, blah. Tired of the conversation, he launches a blast of water toward that man. The water surrounds the nobleman, who is paralyzed with fear, unable to move. He breaks into a cold sweat as the water dances around him menacingly. The young man says all they know is how to talk about bloodlines and look down on others. He asks if nobles and grimoiresmiths are so amazing that they can get away with anything. With a furious and hateful look, He demands that they answer him now. The water gets very close to the nobleman's face, who starts sweating from fear. Stuttering, the man replies that of course not, as that would be absurd. He says that taking a life is never permitted by law, no matter the situation. With a confident smile, the boy listens to the nobleman's words very carefully. He then says that in that case, there is someone there who deserves to be punished much more. The man in the top hat stares at him from a distance, not understanding what he's implying. The young man says that the man who tried to take his and the old man's lives is the real culprit. He accuses Malik of using children for his cruel experiments. The king looks to the side and calls Klaus to confirm the boy's story. The mage then confirms that everything his new apprentice said is the absolute truth. He says that without the boy, he wouldn't be there, and suggests they look for proof in the basement. The boy remembers the children Malik had brought to the dungeon before. He knows they can serve as proof of the villain's experiments on people. The young man says if the country is going to get rid of him just for being an enslaved person, then fine. But he warns that he will fight with everything he has to get out of that place. The water he controls spreads through the courtroom, soaking some of the nobles. Claus then interjects and says that is what he claims will happen. He asks the king if it's all right to let a precious grimoire-smith go. The king stares at him with a serious and thoughtful look after hearing his question. The two stand in the middle of the courtroom, awaiting his majesty's decision. With a sigh, the king says of course not, and declares the trial is over. He orders the knights to investigate Malik's property immediately. Klaus and the boy then turn to leave the courtroom after the king's decision. But before they leave, the king calls Klaus's name to give one last warning. He tells the mage not to lose sight of his new and promising apprentice. Klaus bows and says he will do as his majesty wishes. Outside, the boy stretches and celebrates that he is finally free. With a smile on his face, he feels refreshed after being trapped for so long. Klaus watches him and comments that he looks completely different in those clothes. The boy asks if he is a powerful mage, as they called him the strongest. The old man corrects him and says to call him master, and that he is a grimoire-smith. Excited, he asks where the stones are and what he needs for the journey. Klaus tells him to calm down, but the boy keeps talking about preparations. The master says that as his apprentice, he will study the fundamentals of a grimoire-smith. The young man is shocked and says he just wants to look for the stones, and Klaus calls him Alan. With a pouty face, Alan listens to his new master very attentively. Klaus explains that the continent is very dangerous because of the demons from the west. With a serious look, he tries to make the boy understand the gravity of the situation. He says it would be reckless to travel alone, and that he would perish before he left. Even so, the boy clenches his fist, determined to follow his dream no matter what. Alan insists he wants to go look for the stones, and reminds the master of his promise. With a determined look, he says it was Klaus himself who told him about that world. The mage sighs and seems to understand the anxiety of his new and talented apprentice. He touches the boy's head with the grimoire and says he knows all too well. Klaus explains that's why he needs to become a true grimoire-smith. He says that to look for the magic stones, Alan needs to acquire knowledge. The master shows some jewels and talks about their properties and classifications. He explains that the boy's perspective will change if he understands magic. If he studies at the Magic Tower, he will gain power and everything he needs for his quest. The mage advises Alan to use the Magic Tower's support to his own advantage. He says that way, the boy can live exactly as he wants in that world. Alan repeats his master's words with a slight smile and a thoughtful look. He looks at his hands and at the magic stones he so desperately wants to find. The young man understands that to live as he wants, he needs to become stronger first. With a determined look, he agrees with his master and accepts the proposal. He says if that's what the master says, then he'll go to the Magic Tower. But with a mischievous smile, he warns that if he thinks it's a waste of time, he will leave on his journey immediately, without a second thought. Klaus smiles and says he thinks that's fair, as he trusts his apprentice's potential. He then welcomes the boy to the Magic Tower, where it will all begin. The tower reveals itself as a grand place, and the newest grimoire-smith has arrived. Alan's first day at the Magic Tower finally begins, and he's ready for anything. His master then starts to explain a little about how things work around there. Klaus reveals that the tower is the main defense against fiends and a research center. The Grimoire Smiths can take on missions for the state or focus on their research. Everyone there is free to follow the path they think is best for themselves. The protagonist listens intently as his master continues the explanation. The mage points to a staircase and tells the young man to go complete his final registration. Alan is a bit confused when his master suddenly starts to walk away. Klaus says he has other matters to attend to and won't be able to go with him. With a serious look, the mage wishes his apprentice good luck on his new journey. The boy then begins to climb the gigantic, endless staircase of the magic tower. Exhausted, he complains that the stairs are way too long and he can't go on climbing. With a grumpy face, he doesn't seem very happy about the long walk. Finally, the boy reaches the top and wonders if this is the right place. With a mischievous smile on his face, he approaches the counter to register. Suddenly, something flies past the boy's face very quickly, and he gets startled. He turns to the side and sees enormous gears moving on the wall of the room. The young man is shocked and wonders what this place is with people floating around. One of the mages is writing on a wall that glows with golden letters. He realizes the wall is actually a giant book and is impressed. Meanwhile, other people are using their own grimoires to study and research. Alan doesn't quite understand what everyone is doing in this strange place. A blonde girl bumps into him and asks if he is the Mr. Allen they were expecting. The boy is startled by the cheerful receptionist's sudden approach. The woman smiles and says the master of the magic tower told her about his arrival. She congratulates him and says that with his signature, his registration is finally complete. Next, the receptionist hands him his identification on a special tray. The protagonist looks at the object and wonders if it's a mana stone. The woman confirms it and explains that since he is an apprentice, it's a water stone. She says he can rank up by doing missions and gain more authority. Eagerly, he asks if he can take a mission now, and she says yes right away. The receptionist points to the giant book he saw earlier and calls it Memoria. She explains that Memoria holds all the records of missions and research in the tower. The young woman also says it stores personal data and invites him to touch the book. The boy then extends his hand toward the enormous magic book to interact with it. Upon touching the surface, a message appears and authenticates his access as Alan. The message also shows his apprentice rank and asks what he would like to do. The woman advises that he can also use voice commands and suggests asking for missions. The young man says he wants to accept a mission, and the book shows all the options. With a smile on her face, the receptionist says he doesn't have to say it in pieces. The receptionist explains that as a general rule, apprentices need to team up with someone of a higher rank for missions. Meanwhile, the magic book continues to show all the available missions for him to choose from. The woman then reveals that for his first mission, the master has already chosen one for him, but the boy points to another and says he'd rather do the ore investigation one. She gets nervous and says that mission is for apprentices who are about to graduate, as it involves facing fiends. Even so, the book confirms the mission has been accepted, leaving the receptionist in a panic. She yells that he really accepted it, and that it's very dangerous, but the young man seems quite calm. While the woman panics, the boy asks who this Lucas person on the mission is. Surprised, she asks if he hasn't met his mission partner yet. She reveals that Lucas is the only apprentice of the Master of Miracles, Klaus himself. The young woman says he became an intermediate mage in 4 years when the normal is 10. Another receptionist appears and calls him an absolute genius, and Alan makes a sour face. They say the master hadn't taken any apprentices for decades, but accepted this Lucas fellow, and that rumors say he is the only one capable of inheriting Klaus's research. From a distance, another mage overhears the receptionist's entire conversation. He approaches and comments that he heard the new apprentice used to be a slave. The woman ignores the comment and fawn over Alan, thinking he's a cutie. The boy just ignores it and thinks about what it will be like to have a senior apprentice with him. With the mission papers in hand, the young man turns and leaves the place. He then arrives in front of a very luxurious door seemingly looking for someone. The boy thinks it's a pain to have to form a two-person team and opens the door, but he decides he just needs to put up with it until his rank finally goes up in the tower. Upon entering, a blond man yells angrily, saying it's only been 3 days. The masked boy complains about the mess and wonders why the place is like this. He continues to grumble about how no one puts things back where they belong. Crouching down, he picks up some important documents that were left on the floor. The blonde then realizes he's not alone and calls out for the master with a serious look. The young apprentice asks who he is, and Alan just stares at him in silence. With a surprised look, the masked boy finally understands who is there. He introduces himself as Lucas Vallon and says he is Alan's senior apprentice. The boy thinks so that's the famous Lucas and admits he was a bit startled. The older one asks if he has been informed about the mission they will do together. He tells the rookie to relax because since it's his first mission, he'll be there to help. The blonde hands a paper to the boy and offers to answer any questions. But the young man says he's not nervous and that he'll be fine on the mission. Then, Alan reveals he decided to take a different mission and shows the paper. The senior is confused and asks if it's the mission at the mine in the southern forest. He sees the official seal and says it's no place for a first mission at all. Ignoring the warning, the boy simply asks when they will be leaving. Lucas replies that if they take the morning carriage, they can get there in 2 hours. Alan simply says they will leave tomorrow morning and starts to leave the room. The rookie doesn't even look back and continues on his way with a very determined air. Alone in the room, the blonde just looks at the papers scattered on his desk. He then complains out loud because he had just tidied up that whole mess. Meanwhile, the boy walks down a circular hallway with a book in his hand. He thinks his new mission partner seems like a nice guy. But upon seeing the senior picking up papers from the floor, he notices something more. The young man watches him from afar as Lucas begins to study the materials. He decides that since they are traveling together, there's no need to become friends. The boy decides to grab some books that look useful while he has the chance. With the books in his hands, his only desire at that moment is to read them all. With a determined smile, he dives into his reading, completely focused on learning. In one of the documents, he finds information about a grimoire ceremony. The boy wants to embark on his journey as soon as possible to see the stones. So, he spends the entire night studying and reading various books in the library. Suddenly, he wakes up and wonders if he fell asleep without realizing it. The young man then gets up and looks down at the lower floor of the enormous room. He sees his partner still working at his desk, even though it's very late. The senior seems to be analyzing some magic stones with great attention. The boy's eyes sparkle as he sees the beautiful gems his partner is holding. One of the stones emits an intense purple light and has a very special glow. The blonde continues his work with the magic stones without noticing he's being watched. But he senses the rookie's presence and apologizes, asking if he woke him up. The boy comes down the stairs and approaches the table, saying it's no problem. He then picks up one of the gems and hands it to the senior, who watches him. With a smile on his face, the boy admires the stone and says it's very beautiful. The blonde is surprised and asks if the rookie can also see the magic in it. He explains that in the tower, only the master, and he can see the gem's ancient magic. But the boy is more interested in the golden frame of that small stone. He compares it to the others and says that, just as he thought, that frame is different. The senior is completely confused by the boy's random comment. Then the young man points to 2 gems and states that they are exactly the same. The senior understands and explains that the border design is different for a reason. The boy gets curious and asks about attribute and derivative gems. The blonde explains that the gems are processed so a mage can use them. With an attentive look, he confirms that he understood his partner's explanation. The gems are divided into 2 types according to the ancient magic inside them. Attribute gems manipulate natural forces like fire, water, earth, and wind. Derivative gems, on the other hand, cause phenomena that are not attributes, like other powers. They can do all sorts of things, like seeing through objects and more. The senior continues explaining that derivative gems can also enhance hearing, The boy points to an empty slot in the grimoire his partner is holding. He then places the gems and shows that the circuits on the left and right are different. The right is for derivative gems, while the other is for attribute gems. The rookie asks if the circuit is what extracts the ancient magic, and the blonde confirms it. The senior explains that because they have grimoires, they can use this type of magic. Alan holds the attribute gem and observes it with a look full of curiosity. His partner then says that grimoires are the most important thing of all. The young man listens to the explanation attentively, seeming very focused on the topic. With a serious look, the senior states that for a mage, it is life itself. The boy remembers that his master had also said something similar to that. A memory of Klaus yelling not to touch his book comes to his mind. The blonde says that a grimoire perfect for the mage makes using magic easier. The rookie asks if the ease of use really changes that much with the book. The senior then understands why the boy took on such a reckless mission. He realizes that the reward for that mission is the right to participate in the selection. The boy confirms it is, and the older one tells him to return the gems he took. With a smile, the young man thinks that his own grimoire will be a travel companion. The carriage wheels spin quickly as they head out on their mission. The next morning, the two finally arrive at the mysterious southern forest. The blonde comments that the ground is very muddy because of the rain that fell. The boy asks if that's the miners' village, and his partner confirms it. They walk toward the village but notice there's no one around. The two stand there, observing the completely empty and silent village. The rookie asks if the mine is very close to justify the silence. His partner replies yes, and that the entrance is right past the village. Suddenly, the boy senses something strange and becomes alert to the situation. At that moment, a shadow dashes at high speed right between the two mages. Then, several demonic beasts with red eyes appear to attack them. The senior says that those are the creatures they need to defeat in the mission. With a serious look, the boy confirms he has the grimoire he received. From above, we see that the pair of mages is completely surrounded by the wolves. The boy remembers the gems that were lent to him for this specific mission. He received one of fire, another of water, and also one of earth for the battle. The blonde thinks that using fire would be the fastest, but could spread the flames. So he tells the rookie to stay close so he can protect him properly. The senior prepares to cast a spell using his earth attribute gem, but the boy smiles and says he can protect himself as he activates his magic. With a look full of confidence, the young man prepares to show his power. He then touches the earth gem in his grimoire to cast his first spell. A golden light emanates from the grimoire as the young man prepares for combat. A shining magic circle forms on the ground right beneath his feet. His partner is surprised to see the rookie using magic so easily. The boy feels the power of the gem, and even though he finds it hard to control, he continues. With a determined shout, he raises a huge wave of sand from the ground. The sand turns into sharp spikes that strike one of the demonic beasts. The monster begins to dissolve into dark particles after being hit by the attack. The senior is covered in dust and watches the scene, impressed by what he sees. The blonde is shocked, and the boy explains he learned how to take down fiends yesterday. With a smile on his face, the senior seems to finally recognize the rookie's worth. He admits the boy is worthy of being the master's apprentice and apologizes. Then the senior challenges him to show more of his power as they fight together. The duo fights in perfect sync, combining earth and wind attacks. Suddenly, one of the wolves leaps over a roof to attack the blonde by surprise, but the two mages are alert and ready for any unexpected attack. A distant scream catches the duo's attention, and they look toward the mine. They see one of the miners being attacked by one of the demonic beasts. Without a second thought, the two use magic to propel themselves toward the danger. The rookie complains that the place is still too far and they might not make it in time. Just then, his partner grabs him by the shirt collar, leaving the boy confused. The senior holds him tight and tells him not to let go of the grimoire, no matter what. With a serious look, the blonde begins to conjure a wind spell called Istrophyla. A whirlwind of wind surrounds them and launches them into the air at incredible speed. The older one shouts his partner's name, as they fly toward the mine. The boy opens his eyes and prepares for what's to come upon landing. Inside the mine, one of the men is surrounded by the beasts and seems to have no escape. The duo flies over a giant wolf that appears to be the leader of the pack. Still in the air, the young man uses his grimoire and casts another earth spell on the ground. Pillars of earth rise from the ground, protecting the miner from the creature's attacks. The man is relieved and thanks them for saving him just in the nick of time. The blonde tells him to get to a safe place while the two of them handle the rest. Then, a huge wolf appears, and the senior understands why there were so many creatures. The giant beast was the father of the other wolves, and he doesn't look happy at all. The boy's eyes sparkle, and he notices something in the stone on the wolf's forehead. He can see a very faint golden light inside the creature's central stone. The boy asks his partner if it's possible to defeat fiends without destroying the stone. His special vision reveals that inside the fiend's stone, there is a mana stone, but his companion can't see anything and is confused by the rookie's question. The young man wonders if he's the only one who sees it, or if there's some special connection. With a smile, he tells his partner that if he wants to know, he'll have to see for himself. He licks his lips and says there's no other choice but to get that stone. The young man explains that to remove the gem, they first need to stop the beast's movements. At that, his partner asks if he can really see a golden light in the stone. The boy confirms that he can, and although it's faint, he can see it. With that, the blonde realizes the rookie isn't lying and can see something unique. The senior then agrees to the plan, and the boy gets super excited about the decision. He says he'll help, and Alan explains he'll trap the creature for the other to attack. The senior thinks the plan is clever and begins to conjure a wind spell. He then casts an imprisonment spell to hold the giant wolf in place. The creature is caught by the magic, and the senior yells for his partner to go. The boy then touches the earth gem and starts to imagine the next steps. He focuses on breaking the ground around the fiend and turning it into sand. Meanwhile, his partner floats in the air, keeping the beast trapped with his magic. The rookie remains focused on his spell to make the sand finer and finer. With that, the ground around the creature turns into tiny grains of sand. The monster struggles but can't escape the trap that is slowly forming. Next, the boy readies the water gem for the next step of his plan. A huge amount of water is poured onto the sand, turning everything into a muddy bog. With a determined look, the young man prepares to finish the imprisonment spell. The wolf's head is thrown back by the force of the water that hardens the mud. Seeing the creature trapped, the boy shouts for his partner to attack at that moment. In the sky, the senior prepares a blade of wind to cut the fiend's stone. He points his hand and fires the attack with all his might toward the monster. The blade hits the beast square in the face, but seems to have had no effect. The blonde is in shock to see that his strongest attack simply didn't work. The boy is also surprised, as the senior's magic was easily reflected. The older one explains that the base of the stone is too hard, and wind alone won't cut it. The boy wonders what they will do now that the initial plan has failed. He then looks at his fire and wind gems and gets a brilliant new idea. Realizing that wind alone is not enough, he decides he needs to use the fire gem. The young man shouts for his partner to use the same wind attack one more time. The blonde agrees immediately and prepares another wind blade for a new attack. Just then, the boy uses the fire gem, because for hard things you need to use heat. An intense red energy begins to emanate from the small gem in his hand. He wonders if he can add the heat of the fire to his partner's wind magic. The rookie then extends his hand toward the magic that is being formed. The senior is stunned to see flames mixing with his wind spell. Focused, the young man successfully mixes the power of fire with that of wind. The combined attack, now in flames, advances toward the demonic beast. With a serious look, the senior watches the final attack approaching the target. The young man shouts "Fire!" to finally launch the combined attack with his partner. The blonde confirms with a shout and fires the spell with all his strength at the creature. The flaming wind blade flies at high speed toward the giant beast. The attack hits the stone dead on and manages to rip it from the monster's forehead. With that, The fiend's body begins to dissolve as the gem flies away. The boy then lands safely on a nearby wooden platform. His partner celebrates the victory, saying they finally managed to get the gem, but he turns and sees the rookie jumping from the platform to catch the falling stone. The young man dives through the air with his arms outstretched, trying to reach the red gem. With his hands ready, he prepares to grab the shining stone at the last second. He finally manages to catch the gem and shouts happily that he got it. Upon landing, he celebrates once more with the stone in his hand, saying they won. The blonde comes down and praises his partner, while the young man admires the fiend's stone. The senior thinks that the rookie's raw ability is already that of an intermediate mage. He remembers how the boy managed to combine his magic with someone else's. With a smile, he concludes that his partner is a true and rare prodigy. The blonde then sighs and thinks he's got himself a very impressive junior apprentice. Meanwhile, the boy continues to sit on the ground, observing the gem he obtained. With a smile, he calls his partner and shows that the golden light is really there. He hands over the gem and says the light is fainter than that of a regular mana stone. The senior takes the stone and analyzes it carefully, but can't see the light. He says he doesn't see anything, and that he'll have to ask the master about it later. The boy thinks that if there's ancient magic in there, maybe he can extract and use it. The rescued miners watch from a distance and ask if the mages are okay. The blonde says the fiend has been defeated and asks if any villagers were hurt. Suddenly, the boy looks toward the mine entrance as if he feels something strange. He pauses for a moment and thinks that he just felt something very odd. The young man remembers feeling as if someone was calling him from afar. Still intrigued by the sensation, he continues to observe everything around him. He then touches the gem on his chest, which begins to glow with a soft light. His partner calls his name twice, pulling him from his deep thoughts. The senior asks to check the gems in the book, and the boy agrees right away. The duo then prepares to continue the mission and investigate the ore vein. The blonde says for them to go, and the rookie stares at him for a moment before following. The two then arrive at a large house in the miners' village. A family reunites happily and thanks the young man for saving them. The senior checks the book and says everything is fine while the rookie looks out the window. He explains they need to inspect the vein, as it's a rule to confirm the mana stones. The boy gets super excited at the idea of a mana stone vein and asks questions. He pulls his partner along in a hurry, thinking he's also curious about that feeling. But an old man appears and says he won't allow them to enter the mine. No way. Another man runs up and asks the gentleman not to anger this Lord Anuma. Confused, the pair of mages asks who this person the old man mentioned might be. He reveals that it is the guardian of the forest and has lived in the mine since ancient times. The two young men listen to the man's explanation with very serious expressions. The old man's son tries to calm him, but he shouts that the fiends attacked because of them. The mages look at each other, not understanding the situation, and wonder what to do now. They decide to ignore the old man and continue, as it's their job to investigate the site. The duo then finally enters the darkness of the mysterious and dangerous mine. The senior says the so-called lord must be a phantom beast, and the rookie is curious. The blonde explains that these beasts are neither animals nor fiends, but something else. The boy is even more confused by his partner's explanation of the creature. Just then, the senior reveals that their bodies are made of mana stones, and the young man gets excited. Legends say they live for 1,000 years and can use ancient magic freely. There are several not registered by the Magic Tower scattered across the continent. Because they are rare, people worship them as gods, and the boy wonders if there is one here. His partner says who knows, but if there is, it will be one that's not in the records. He also warns the rookie not to get his hopes up, as they are like gods. Legend has it that on a whim, the beasts give unique gifts to certain mages. The image shows a huge golden bird blessing a human with its power, but the senior warns that this is just a fairy tale from very old texts. The boy smiles and thinks that a god who gives gifts sounds very interesting. With a curious look, he wonders what a creature made of mana stones would be like. He thinks that if they live so long, maybe he can ask them what mana stones are. The young man wonders if the voice he heard was a beast and says he would love to talk. He looks ahead and is impressed by what he sees in the dark cave. With his eyes shining, he admires the beauty of that magical and unique place. The two finally arrive at the Mana Vein and see enormous blue crystals shining. The boy walks toward the glow of the crystals, floating all over the place. He gets closer and touches one of the mana stones with an enchanted look. With a smile on his face, he says this place is the most beautiful thing he has ever seen. The blonde comments that for them, the inspection is easy because they can see the golden light. His partner confirms that he remembered other mages need to use tools. Suddenly, the boy feels a sharp headache and groans in pain in the darkness. He looks to the side and realizes that strange feeling is back. The voice calls him again, and the crystals around him begin to float in the air. Surprised, he shouts and his partner calls his name, worried about the situation. Just then, the ground beneath him cracks, and the young man begins to fall into a hole. He screams in desperation as he falls deeper and deeper into the mine's darkness. The boy continues to fall endlessly toward a golden light at the bottom of the abyss. The boy finally hits the ground and complains of pain from the sudden fall. Suddenly, a golden light flies by, and the reflection of the crystals shines in his eyes. He then looks up and is amazed by the enormous amount of crystals. The boy finds himself in a gigantic cavern completely filled with mana stones. Shocked, he wonders if all of this around him are really mana stones. Among so many shining crystals, he keeps wondering if all of this is real. With his eyes sparkling in admiration, he finds the place incredibly beautiful and magical. From above, his partner shouts down, asking if he's okay, and the young man says he is. The boy walks through the cave and notices the blue gets stronger the deeper he goes. Then he stops, realizing that one of the huge crystals in front of him is shining differently. Startled, the boy sees something moving inside the crystal and wonders if those are horns. Just then, a huge creature made of crystal begins to emerge from the cave wall. The young man watches and wonders if it's some kind of living creature. The giant creature stares at him, and a voice speaks of a nostalgic scent in the air. The boy senses no ill will, and the voice tells him to lower his guard. He finds it strange because the voice isn't a sound, but echoes directly inside his head. Upon seeing its body of mana stones, the young man finally understands what the creature is. With a surprised look, he asks if it is the phantom beast they were talking about. The creature confirms it was once called that, and the boy is shocked. He remembers what his partner said and asks if it was the one who called to him earlier. The beast says it was drawn by the scent, and that the young man has special eyes to see. It reveals that his eyes see the same world that phantom beasts can see. The creature says it hasn't seen anyone like him for centuries, and the boy becomes thoughtful. His eyes glow with a golden light as he listens to the creature's explanation. The young man shows his glowing hands and asks if that's the light it's talking about. The crystal beast seems surprised and moves closer to see the golden light. Then it reveals this is ancient magic, and the boy doesn't grasp its significance. The creature says his eyes reflect the glow of mana and the trapped ancient magic, but it states that even it doesn't know the reason why these eyes are granted. The beast shares that an old friend once said it's a treasure for those beloved by the world. The boy repeats the creature's words and wonders what it means to be beloved by the world. With a thoughtful expression, he seems to be reflecting on everything he has just discovered. He then approaches and reaches out to touch the beast's crystal body. His hand finally touches the magical creature's shining, cold surface. He says the sensation of touching the beast is cold and very refreshing. With a smile, he describes the feeling as a flow of cold, heavy water. He then presses his face against the crystal and says that phantom beasts are beautiful. The creature thanks him, saying it's the first time anyone has ever said that to it. It says it's going to brag to the 7-star kings, leaving the young man confused. The beast explains that they're the pinnacle of all creatures and the true pillars of the world. The boy is shocked to learn there are 7 creatures even more incredible than this one. The creature says it said too much and that it hasn't seen the Star Kings in a very long time. The young man makes a funny face, understanding that living for so long must be quite tiring. The beast says it's going back to sleep, but the boy stops it with more questions. He asks what ancient magic is, but the creature simply tells him not to worry about it. The creature calls him a beloved child of the world and says it feels a dazzling love radiating from him. It prophesies that if he continues on his path, the 7 star kings will cross his destiny, and they will guide him to the source of magic, leaving the young man confused by this revelation. The beast says it's better to hear the details from the kings themselves and asks him to hold out his hand. Then, the creature decides to give a modest blessing to the little mage heading toward the future. But it believes he can handle the magic and shoots a beam of light from its horn. This light becomes a mana scale, and the boy asks if it's a mana stone. The scale glows intensely as the creature's voice calls him a child beloved by the world. With this, the beast says he will surely be able to reach his ultimate goal. The goal is the primeval mana stone, and the young man is shocked by this information. As the creature starts to fade away, the boy tries to stop it, still having more questions. He asks about the stone, but the light gets so bright he can barely see. The intense light blinds him for a moment, and the phantom beast vanishes completely. Back in the dark cave, the boy holds the crystal as his partner calls out to him. The blonde boy runs toward him with a lantern in his hand, looking very relieved to find him. A bit dizzy, the young man asks what happened to that giant cave from before. He can still feel the beast's presence, but it seems to be sleeping far, far away. His partner then asks what that object he's holding in his hand is. The boy gets awkward and asks if this could be a blessing from the phantom beast. He tries to explain that the creature gave him a scale as some kind of gift. Not knowing how to explain the situation, he gets all flustered, and his partner becomes suspicious. Back at the magic tower, their master analyzes the 2 stones the boy brought back. Klaus says that both are very different from the mana stones they usually mine. The senior asks about the mission report, but the rookie hasn't done it yet. The master says he will handle the report about the beast and the stones himself. Then, the mage gets the attention of his apprentice, who is still mesmerized by the crystal. He says the boy should polish the scale and turn it into a jewel, and the young man gets excited. The master says he'll prepare the tools, and that he can use the other stone for research. Klaus tells him to write the report and choose a grimoire, but the boy doesn't seem to be listening. Upon hearing the word grimoire, the boy finally pays attention to the conversation. With a leap of excitement, he grabs his mission partner with a determined look. He shouts for them to go, as he wants to get his new grimoire as soon as possible. The blonde is dragged along by the rookie, who can't contain his excitement at the moment. Finally, they arrive at the grimoire selection area, where the receptionists are waiting. The boy thinks that he's finally going to get his hands on his very own magic book. They enter a large, dark hall that looks like a library or an old archive. A huge gate is locked with a chain and a padlock, and the young man approaches it. Out of curiosity, he peeks through a crack in the door to see what's inside. Inside, an infinite library full of grimoires appears, and he dreams of his own. Standing in front of the door, the boy is ready to find his partner for the journey ahead. As soon as the young man hands over the documents, a loud bell rings, announcing the start of the ceremony. At that, the giant gears of the gate begin to move with a metallic noise. Hearing this, other mages turn and ask who will be participating in the grimoire selection this time. One of them is shocked to recognize the rookie and questions how he got the right to participate. Everyone in the hall turns to look at the boy's group with curious and disdainful gazes. 2 mages call him a fool and say a grimoire would never choose a rookie with his background. But the black-haired boy says the legend of the Golden Book is false because he saw the records. A blonde girl calls out the boy's name, seeming worried about his decision to participate. Back at the gate, the guards prepare to open the passage to the grimoire archive. With an excited look, he asks if all the magic books are kept inside. His partner confirms and explains that it's the archive where they keep masterless grimoires. Then he gets the rookie's attention and prepares to give him the most important instructions. He warns him that rule number 1 is to never touch the grimoires on the shelves. The blonde explains that if a book chooses him, it will come to him, otherwise, he'll return empty-handed. The young man looks sad and asks if that means he might not get anything at all. His senior confirms and shows the permit, saying it's only the right to participate in the event. At that moment, the enormous gates open, and an intense light shines from within the library. His partner warns him that very inexperienced mages are not recognized by the grimoires. With a determined smile, the boy understands that if he isn't chosen, he'll just have to train harder. His friend adds that he'll have to earn the right to participate all over again. Before going in, the blonde calls out to him and tells him to take something he's offering. In his hand is a small golden sphere, and the boy wonders what it is. Suddenly, the sphere grows wings and starts to fly, leaving the young mage completely startled. His partner explains that it's a magical tool to monitor him and prevent any funny business. The flying sphere will broadcast everything live to a place called Memoria. Meanwhile, the other students watch everything and comment on how strange it is to see the sphere flying. The senior tells the rookie not to worry, as he will be waiting just outside the gate. He gives a confident smile to encourage the boy, who is about to enter the challenge. His friend wishes him good luck, and the young man enters the library with a look full of determination. With a firm step, he finally crosses the entrance of the gigantic grimoire archive. Alone in the immense library, he begins to walk as the magic sphere follows him closely. The boy finds the place strangely silent, but feels that something is different here. He keeps walking and senses a strange presence, as if the place itself is breathing. Then, a bright light catches his attention, coming from one of the higher shelves. The boy realizes that not all the books are grimoires, and only a few of them truly shine. He understands that the books emitting light are the true grimoires that can choose him. With a funny look, he remembers that he can't touch the books, and becomes thoughtful. With his arms crossed, he wonders how he'll know if any book will actually choose him. Suddenly, he sees something moving in the dark and becomes alert, wondering what it is. Cautiously, he peeks from behind a shelf and wonders if it's a fiend. With a keen eye, he realizes it's not a fiend, but something else approaching. Suddenly, a huge white wolf with a symbol on its forehead emerges from behind the bookshelf. Startled, the boy wonders if that's really a wolf and stares at the magical animal. The creature runs past him, and the boy shouts for it to be careful with the books. Without a second thought, the young man starts chasing the wolf through the giant library. He follows the magical animal through the endless corridors of books, not knowing where it will lead. Out of breath, the boy stops and looks up, trying to find where the wolf went. On top of a pile of books, the creature howls at the ceiling of the magical library. The boy is impressed by the scene and watches the wolf with admiration in his eyes. The creature howls loudly, and its eyes glow with an intense, powerful purple light. With a confused face, the boy just watches, not understanding what is happening. Then the wolf sits down and closes its eyes, as if concentrating on something. The symbol on its forehead glows brightly, and an enormous purple energy explodes. Magical circles spread throughout the library, with the boy standing in the middle of it all. The purple light hits him head on, and he is shocked by the amount of magical power. With a cry of surprise, he is thrown backward by the force of the magic explosion. The young man falls to the ground and can barely move due to the intensity of the purple light. Meanwhile, the magic sphere continues to fly and record everything happening in the area. Outside, everyone sees the purple light and a magic book forming in the air. The other students are shocked and wonder how much power that newcomer has. Even the supervisors are stunned, as they've never seen a ceremony like this one. The master wonders if the boy's affinity with ancient magic has something to do with this. Inside the library, the shining grimoire slowly floats toward the young mage. A little dizzy, he gets up and extends his hands to receive the book that has chosen him. The grimoire lands gently in his hands, and the purple light intensifies around him. With his eyes glowing, he feels the enormous amount of mana coming from the book. The grimoire feels alive, and he senses a flow of mana that feels like a heartbeat. A strange sensation runs through his body as he holds the magic book. He feels a comforting warmth and a powerful energy coming from the grimoire. With a smile, he finally understands that this is his grimoire and his partner for the journey. The boy hugs the book affectionately with a smile of pure happiness on his face. Everyone outside watches the scene, impressed by what has just happened. The old master thinks that he knew of the boy's potential, but didn't expect this much. Back in the room, The master greets them and asks how the selection ceremony went. With a proud smile, the young man shows the book he got and says everything went well. The master says he already knows because he was watching everything through the sphere's broadcast. The boy hands the grimoire to the master, who takes it for a closer look. He analyzes the book and says that although it's old, it seems to be a good grimoire for him. As he hands the book back, the master tells the boy to take good care of his new partner. Then he calls them to sit down, as they need to have a serious conversation now. In the master's room, the boy is exhausted on the floor, but seems happy with the outcome of it all. While drinking a warm beverage, he comments that the smell is very nice and relaxing. The master says he was thinking about what he said about the blessing from the spirit creature. With a serious look, the mage asks his apprentice to tell the story one more time. He wants to know the exact words the phantom beast said to the boy. So, the young man begins to retell everything he heard from the magical creature in the crystal cave. He reveals that the creature said he was a child beloved by the world, or something like that, and that his eyes, which see the golden light, perceive the same world that the beasts can see. Furthermore, the beast prophesied that the 7-star kings would guide him to the source of magic. The master understands the situation and decides it's best to tell his apprentice the truth. He begins by explaining that the 7-star kings are famous creatures throughout the continent. He then shows a map with the 5 great territories of the continent known to all. The mage says that a spirit creature governs each of these 5 great territories. The boy is confused and asks why there are only 5. They are called the 7-star kings. His partner answers that the whereabouts of the other 2-star kings are unknown. He reveals that he and the master have been investigating this for a long time, but without success so far. With his hands clasped, the young man then asks what the source of magic would be. The master says that the source of magic is probably what the ancient legends call. He explains that the name of this item has been passed down through legends for many generations. The theory is that it's the stone with the first magic born into the world, but no one knows for sure. If someone could find this stone and use the magic hidden inside it, the great question that has lasted for hundreds of years would finally be answered, and they could finally discover what ancient magic truly is. With a serious look, the master calls his apprentice's name and stares at him intently. He confirms that the beast said the Star Kings would guide him on his journey. In that case, the master says he must search for the 7-star kings and find them. The young man thinks that perhaps it is his destiny to obtain the primeval mana stone. He reflects that if a normal creature stone shines so brightly, he can only imagine the king's stones. With his eyes gleaming, he imagines that the king's stones must be even more incredible. Then the boy stands up and tells his master that he has already made a decision. He will become a great grimoire, smith, and search for the 7-star kings. And with his own eyes, he will see every mana stone that exists in the world. His master says that if he intends to do that, he will need to prepare very well. He reveals a secret piece of information about the invasions of the fiends from the west. Apparently, the true targets of the fiends are the existing spirit creatures. His partner confirms, saying that one creature has already been attacked in the Guardian's territory. The mage warns him that if he goes after the Star Kings, he will face many fiends. To prepare for that, he must become the strongest grimoire, smith of all. As a good start, he tells the boy to perform maintenance on his magic book. He arrives at the location indicated by the master, but seems a bit suspicious of the place. Inside the magic tower, several artisans work in their workshops with great dedication. This is the workshop district, a bustling place full of life in the tower. Upon entering the place, the boy comments on how lively and busy everything is. Suddenly, an elf appears behind him and asks if he came for his book's maintenance. Startled, the boy complains and hands the grimoire to the elf for a look. The artisan says it won't take long and asks the young man to come in and wait a bit. The boy asks if he can tell what the problem is just by looking, and the elf confirms. He places the book on the table and says the boy found a good book and should take care of it. At that, the young man notices the artisan's pointed ears and gets a little curious. The artisan's ears are long and pointed, and he even wears a piercing in one. He explains that he's from the forest folk, and that they have special techniques with magic. He then points to another workshop and shows other people working there. There are the Stone Guardians, who also work as artisans in the Magic Tower. The boy is amazed to see several raw mana stones on the table. He understands that they use the mana fragments to power the magical tools. With a smile, the young man moves to touch the stones, but the Guardian stops him. Then he remembers something and gets an idea for his journey in search of the kings. The boy asks the elf if there is a spirit creature in the land of the forest folk. The artisan asks if he's interested, and the young man gets excited at the possibility. He says he really wants to meet the creature and asks what it's like and what its powers are. But the elf says he's just an artisan and doesn't know the details. But he knows someone who does. The young man is confused, as he doesn't understand who the artisan is talking about. The elf explains that a certain group knows more about the creature than anyone else. With a gesture, he beckons the boy closer as if he's about to share a big secret. He says he'll tell him because the mage's scent is pleasant for a human, and he likes that. Curious, the boy leans in and listens attentively to the elf's valuable information. He reveals that his people's caravan is about to arrive at the Magic Tower, and that every year, a skilled warrior comes along to escort the group safely. The elf says it's a secret, and the young man understands it must be a type of guardian. Far away, a caravan travels down a road, and an elf maiden rests in a wagon. With a bored expression, she complains that escort duty is very dull. A man informs her they are almost at the Magic Tower, and she just agrees. Lying down, she looks at the sky and thinks about the Magic Tower, her next destination. She remembers a night in the forest, where a man was surrounded by enemies. The man seemed determined but was injured, and at a great disadvantage in the fight. Just then, a long-haired elf appears and smiles confidently under the moonlight. The elf maiden thinks that despite everything, that man couldn't win the fight against them. Suddenly, she loses her balance and falls from the wagon, wondering if she'll find anyone good. Back at the workshop, the boy receives his repaired grimoire and thanks the artisan. With a smile on his face, he holds the book up to the light, looking very happy. A bird flies across the sky and drops a few feathers that glow with a magical light. The feather falls toward the Magic Tower, where the young mage is working on his project. In his room, the boy is focused on polishing the mana scale he received from the Phantom Beast. Just then, his partner enters the room and calls his name to deliver an important message. The blonde asks if he spent the whole night polishing, and the young man says he's almost done. His senior informs him that the traveling merchants market has started, and the boy gets excited. With that, they head to the fair, which is filled with stalls and people from all over. The boy is amazed by the number of different and exotic items for sale. He approaches a stall and comments that everything there is new and incredible to him. A vendor shows him a magical item that lights a flame, and the young man is enchanted. Upon hearing the words forest folk, he remembers his objective at the fair. The boy almost forgot his goal and starts looking for the guardian in the crowd. He sees some elves patrolling the area, but none of them look like the guardian. The young man remembers the tip the artisan gave him about a skilled guardian in the caravan. But as he looks at the crowd, he can't see anyone who looks like a warrior. Then he stops at a stall selling animals and sees a huge bird in a cage. Inside the cage, the bird looks sad and a little scared by all the commotion. With a serious look, he wonders if they really trade live animals there at the fair. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurs, frightening the nearby horses. The boy turns around, startled, and tries to understand what caused all the noise and confusion. People start running in panic, and an elf shouts for everyone to flee the area. Amid the smoke, a giant, fearsome creature appears, causing more panic. He wonders if an animal escaped but soon realizes the situation is much worse. The boy gets a bad feeling upon seeing the creature's red eyes in the smoke. An elf maiden identifies it as a Morlock, but says there's something wrong with the creature. The giant monster starts attacking people and destroying everything in its path. One of the patrol elves shouts for all humans to evacuate the area immediately. Then he sees the boy standing there and yells at him to get out of the giant monster's way. Two elves attack the Morlock with magic, but wonder why it's so aggressive. The young man doesn't just stand by, he opens his grimoire to prepare a helpful spell. The monster is hit by the elf's magic, but it only seems to make it angrier. With a single blow, the creature easily throws one of the elves far away. With his grimoire in hand, the boy points at the monster and prepares to attack. With that, a huge crystal pillar shoots out of the ground and traps the giant Morlock's arm. The elves are surprised to see a child there and recognize his apprentice robes. He extends his hand and offers a small sphere of light to help the elves in the fight. One of the elves stares at him and asks if he has some wish to be done in by meddling here. He thanks him for the help, but says an apprentice is no match for that creature. The boy makes a serious face and repeats the elf's words in a challenging tone. Meanwhile, the other elves continue to attack the monster trapped in the crystal. One of the elf maidens shouts in desperation, warning that arrows won't work against the creature. Her companion says they would be fine if only a certain person were there. He finishes the sentence, wishing that someone named Shumiel was there to help in the fight. From a distance, the elf maiden from the wagon complains and wonders where that lazy person has gone. An elf shouts for the young man to watch out as the monster attacks again with fury. With a swift move, the boy creates a sand barrier and finds the speed incredible. He realizes that the speed to cast his magic is completely different from before. Then the boy uses the sand itself as a foothold to launch himself into the air. He thinks about how easy it is to use his grimoire's power to create complex spells. From above, he launches a sphere of magic toward the monster, which roars in anger. The attack hits the target dead on, kicking up a cloud of dust and debris. With a smile, he feels proud and realizes the true power of his grimoire. Next, the mage takes out a small red mana stone for a new spell. With a concentrated look, he prepares to cast another powerful spell in the fight. In the sky, a huge magical circle of water forms and spins above the monster's head. The boy throws the small stone into the water vortex to power up the spell. The water rushes down with force and mixes with the sand, trapping the creature in a mire. Surprised, he sees the result of his combination of spells from different elements. The elf maiden is shocked to see him manipulating sand and yells for the apprentice to run. The monster gets stuck in the quicksand the boy created and can't break free. The mud then begins to harden, turning into a solid stone statue. The elf who told him to leave shouts the apprentice's name, completely shocked by the scene. The two elves look at the monster statue, unable to believe what they just saw. The elf who underestimated him is left with his mouth wide open, stunned by the young mage's power. With one last move, the boy uses water to completely seal the statue. The other patrol elves comment on the apprentice, impressed with him. They can't believe a simple human managed to do all that on his own. From a rooftop, the elf maiden from the wagon watches the whole scene with interest. With a smirk, she seems to be enjoying the young mage's skill. The square is a mess, but the monster is finally still, and the fight seems to be over. But the boy feels it's not over yet, and that the battle is far from finished. He launches another sand attack, but the creature seems to resist the spell. Then he notices something strange on the monster's back and focuses his attention there. He senses a bad energy coming from that spot and decides to attack with full force. His eyes glow with a green light as he prepares a spell of pure energy. A powerful beam of green light hits the giant monster's back squarely. The creature bursts, and a black liquid flies everywhere, splashing the boy. Suddenly, the elf maiden from the wagon appears and compliments him, saying that wasn't half bad. With a wave, she greets him, and the boy is startled by her sudden appearance. He realizes that this elf is on a completely different level from the others there. With a smile, the elf maiden asks if she scared him, and he stares at her, impressed by her strength. Just then, the other elves arrive and call her by the name Shumiel with a tone of relief. The boy finally understands that this is the guardian he was searching for at the fair. One of them asks where she was, and the young apprentice just observes the group's interaction. The red-haired boy shouts the guardian's name, seeming very irritated with her. He grabs her by the collar and angrily asks where she's been all this time. Angrily, he says that if she had acted sooner, no one would have gotten hurt in the confusion. She ignores the scolding and says she did her job, but he questions her position. Shumil looks at the elf's arm and seems to notice something that leaves him speechless. Then she asks if they understand their own position, and he is left speechless. The guardian humiliates them, saying they used a human child as a shield in the fight. After the scolding, she turns to the young man and praises him again for his strength. With an amused look, she seems to find the whole situation super interesting and exciting. Suddenly, the body of the destroyed monster begins to move again on the ground. The other elves are shocked to see that the creature is still alive and reforming. With a watchful eye, the boy observes the monster rising again with a dark energy. The creature begins to regenerate and prepares to attack again with more force. In the blink of an eye, Shumil grabs the boy and takes him to a safe spot on the roof. She asks if he's okay and says that was a close call. In an awkward hug, she holds him and apologizes for the sudden grab. The monster stands up completely and roars at them, showing that the fight isn't over. The guardian says that normally, the creature shouldn't be able to move after that attack. Then, they both notice a glowing red core in the regenerated creature's chest. Shumil offers to provide cover and asks if the young mage can finish it. He says he doesn't mind helping, but has one condition for the guardian. In exchange for his help, he wants her to listen to a request of his when it's all over. With a challenging smile, he calls her Mez Guardian and waits for a response. She is impressed by the boy's boldness and looks at him with interest. The elf says she'll think about it if he can finish the fight properly. Excited, he thinks that now he can ask about the phantom beasts he's looking for. He places the mana stone he polished on top of his grandmire in a magic circle. Suddenly, a jet of water hits Shumil dead on, leaving her completely confused. The elf maiden notices the enormous amount of water magic the boy is summoning with a smile. She wants to see how far he can go with the power of his grimoire. The boy says he'll do as he pleases and tells her to provide the support she promised. The other elves watch from a distance, shocked by the scale of his magic. The enormous mass of water engulfs the monster, trapping it in a powerful vortex. The water crashes against the creature, dragging it with impressive force. The young man says he will attack with one more blow to end the fight once and for all. With one last effort, he launches another powerful wave of water toward the monster. The creature is hit head-on by the powerful wave of water that drags it across the square. With a smile, the guardian is impressed and says he's not holding back at all. From the rooftop, they watch the fallen monster with a huge hole in its chest. Then the boy asks if she can see the black spot that's pulsing in the monster. He points and tells her to shoot right there, at that red core, which is the weak spot. The elf recognizes the core and, with a confident look, readies her bow and arrow to shoot. With a green glow, she fires a magic arrow that flies at high speed toward the target. The arrow hits the core dead on, causing a huge explosion of green light. With the core destroyed, the creature falls to the ground, and the dust settles, revealing the scene. One of the elves asks if they finally managed to defeat the monster for good, but the monster's body begins to writhe and form strange, red bubbles. The two watch the scene from above, not understanding how the creature is still moving. The creature transforms into a disgusting mass of flesh and bubbles and gets up. The monster dissolves into a dark, disgusting liquid that spreads across the ground. One of the elves shouts in desperation and tells everyone to evacuate the area as quickly as possible. Shumil and the other elves brace for the worst as the creature reforms. With his eyes glowing, the young mage prepares to cast another powerful spell. Without hesitation, the young man summons a huge sphere of water that spins in the air with great power. The sphere of water swallows the creature, trapping it in a vortex of pure magic. The elves watch the scene and wonder if the fight is finally over for real. Everyone is relieved, and one of them comments that they've finally been saved from danger. At that, people start to return to help clean up the mess the fight caused. As he gets closer, he finds the small red core that was controlling the creature. With a shocked look, he remembers it's the same type of core used on the servants. Suddenly, the guardian hugs him from behind and excitedly calls him "little guy." She praises him, saying he's very strong, and hugs him tightly with admiration. He says yes and calls in the favor asking her to tell him about the beast king of her land. With a smile, she asks how he found out about that and seems surprised by the request. The young man starts asking several questions about the creature's appearance and power. With an excited face, he seems very eager to know all the details about the beast. The guardian is a bit confused by the boy's sudden interest in the subject. She looks at him and seems to think for a moment before answering his questions. Then Shumil leans close to his face and begins to sniff the air around him. He finds it strange and asks if the forest folk have a habit of sniffing people. The elf maiden reveals that he has the same scent as a phantom beast and becomes suspicious. She asks if the creature said anything to him, and the young man just nods in confirmation. The guardian reveals that the beast reads the wind of the past, the present, and also the future. With a smile, she sits down next to him and prepares to tell him a little secret. The boy is shocked to learn that the creature can even see people's futures. She says that if she talks too much, the creature might get mad at her for revealing so much. She reveals that the king knows everything in this world, and that's all she can say. If he wants to see for himself, he'll have to participate in the festival of the forest folk. With a smile, he notes that the next festival will be in just 2 years. With a mischievous grin, the boy thinks the timing is perfect for his plans. He says he doesn't need to wait 2 years to get what he wants now. The young man challenges her, saying he just needs to defeat her right here and now to be able to go. Shumil finds the boy interesting and praises his boldness and determination, but she apologizes and says that defeating just her doesn't count for the challenge. The condition is to face and defeat all the guardians of the forest folk. So she advises him to get stronger and come back in 2 years for the festival. And when that day comes, she will fight with everything she's got against the young mage. He repeats her words, and a smile forms on his face, full of confidence. With a determined look, he warns her not to be so nonchalant about the fight, because he will definitely win and get his audience with the king of beasts. Suddenly, the boy's master appears and draws their attention to the conversation. The boy turns around and is surprised to see his master there in the middle of the fair. The mage approaches and observes them with a curious and slightly suspicious look. He recognizes the core the young man is holding and asks where it came from. With a serious look, the master asks to take the core to investigate it further. Upon seeing the master, the guardian recognizes him and says it's been a long time. The mage looks at her and asks if she happens to be one of the guardians he's looking for. With a laugh, she teases him and says that Brad has turned into a grumpy old man. The master remembers fighting against the 7 guardians in the festival of the past. He turns to the elf maiden and asks if the young mage is her new apprentice in the tower. Shumil shouts with excitement and jumps for joy upon learning he is the boy's master. She thinks someone annoying has arrived and, with a quick leap, tries to flee the scene. With a wave, she says goodbye and vanishes in the blink of an eye, leaving everyone behind. The boy shouts and tries to stop her, as he still had more questions to ask her. The guardian shouts from a distance, saying she'll be waiting for him in the land of the forest folk. With a frustrated look, he laments not getting all the answers he wanted. The master observes him and says the guardians are much stronger than he imagines. He reveals that he can no longer challenge them in the festival, but the boy can. With a serious look, he faces his master and seems to reflect on his words. Determined, the young man says yes, and that he's looking forward to the challenge that awaits him. He can't wait to meet the great eagle, like king that awaits him. The beast's eyes glow in the darkness as it waits for the day of their reunion. Days later, in the tower's laboratory, the master analyzes the red core he took. He realizes the core's material is the same as an item from Malik's laboratory. With a serious look, he wonders if someone planted that core there on purpose. Suspicious, the mage begins to wonder who could be behind all of this. With a worried look, the older mage calls out his apprentice's name. He has a bad feeling and thinks the boy's journey will be harder than he anticipated. Just then, the magic phone rings, and he answers to find out what's happening on the other end. Desperately, someone reports that an army of fiends is marching toward the southern city. Far away, the young apprentice holds the mana stone, which glows with an intense power. He celebrates being finished and his friend asks if the polishing process is over. The phantom beast stone pulses with a magical and mysterious energy in his hands. The boy sits down, curious to know what kind of ancient magic is sealed inside. His blonde partner approaches and asks to take a look at the mana stone too. With a smile, he seems very curious about the power of that magical item. Then he shouts for his friend not to use the magic inside, as they don't know what will come out. But the young mage is already all set, and a blue glow fills the room. The mana stone is activated in a magic circle and releases all its power at once. With a confident smile, the grimoire begins to shine, but his friend starts to panic. The young mage's eyes glow brightly with the power of the magic that was released. However, a soap bubble pops out of the stone, and he's left completely confused. More bubbles start to appear, and his partner gets desperate over the unexpected result. The boy wonders why only bubbles are coming out of such a powerful spell. He holds one of the spheres and feels an enormous magical power, but something seems off. The boy explains that it feels like all that immense power is just slipping away. With a frustrated look, he tries to hold onto the energy but can't control it. His master says that ancient spells are complex and require a certain touch to use. The mage explains that the stronger the magic, the more skill is needed to wield it. The young man remembers the phantom beast, warning him it would be difficult to control. Disappointed, he wanted to see the magic, but his master says there's something more important. The mage reveals that an army of demons is heading south, and they are going to help. Excited, the boy says he's going with them, but his master asks him to stay behind this time. With a shocked expression, the young man asks why he can't go with them to the battle. The master knows he's strong, but says that something has been bothering him lately. The boy gets serious and wonders what his master is so worried about. The next morning, the apprentice climbs the tower stairs with a bag on his back. A man informs him that a messenger reported the squad's arrival in the south. The young man becomes thoughtful, wondering if he should have insisted on going along. He arrives in a room where a blonde girl seems to be having trouble with her identification. The girl sees him and greets him by name, and he thinks he's not very good at dealing with her. She asks if he's gotten used to the tower yet, and the boy answers a bit awkwardly. Suddenly, a strange noise echoes throughout the hall, startling everyone there. An alarm goes off, announcing that a high-level prisoner has escaped from the magic tower. The boy and the girl look at each other in shock, wondering about the prisoner's escape. A guard runs by in desperation, yelling to call the Lord of the Magic Tower now. In a panic, he reveals that all the dungeon guards were completely taken out. The man despairs and yells again for them to bring the master of the tower immediately. The boy apologizes to the girl and tells her to just focus on evacuating the area. As everyone runs, the young mage heads in the opposite direction with his grimoire. He says that the one who took out the guards is probably still inside the tower. With a serious look, the boy seems to have a plan and isn't just going to run away. Instead of leaving, he approaches a door and gets ready to enter the room. The young man stands still and notices the boots of someone on the other side of the door. Without hesitation, he opens the door and enters the room to see who is hiding there. Upon entering, he comes face to face with a white-haired man standing in the middle of the room. Shocked, the boy recognizes him and asks what he's doing in that place. It was Malik, the man his master suspected, and he was standing right in front of him. With the grimoire in hand, the apprentice prepares for an unavoidable confrontation. Malik glares at him and recognizes him as the brat who interfered with his plans before. Furious, he calls the boy a pawn for getting in his way. The apprentice realizes there's something very strange about the old mage in front of him. Then the villain starts talking about guiding the world to its correct and ideal state. He says someone sent him to do this, and that he has the right to change everything. With a crazed look, he prepares to show the boy his true power. The man says he will prove his worth to this mysterious person who guides him. He then reveals that he will get rid of everyone in the country to gain a new power. He holds a red core and says he will become the strongest being in existence. Shocked, the young mage prepares a powerful water spell to attack the enemy. The villain then says the boy will become the new king of 7 stars. With a smirk, He swallows the boy's water spell as if it were nothing. The water surrounds the mage's body and transforms into a torrent of power. Suddenly, a dark magic erupts from Malik's body, nullifying the young man's attack. The villain blasts a huge hole in the tower wall and prepares to escape. The force of the attack throws the boy backward, and he cries out from the impact. Lying on the floor, he watches the enemy flee and feels helpless about the situation. He then gets up with difficulty and clutches his grimoire with strength and determination. Through the hole in the wall, he sees the villain's figure and prepares to pursue him. With a confused look, he wonders if that monster is really the Malik he knew. The skeletal creature with red eyes leaps from the tower and flees into the city. The boy leans on the edge of the hole and looks down with a determined expression. Without a second thought, he says there's no way he's letting the villain get away. He jumps from the tower after the monster, and an emergency message echoes all around. The warning tells all grimoire wielders to subjugate the demons in the capital. With his feet glowing green, he wonders what on earth is going on here. He runs through the garden, trying to understand the chaotic situation that has taken over the city. In the streets, he sees a green demon about to attack one of his colleagues from the tower. With a swift strike, the young mage saves his friend and defeats the nasty creature. His colleague thanks him for the help, and the boy looks at the scene with anger and frustration. With a furious look, he realizes the situation is out of control. More demons appear and attack the civilians, who run desperately through the streets. He places a mana stone into his grimoire to release even greater power. With a serious look, he wonders where all those creatures came from. The young man prepares to fight and protect the people from this surprise attack. With a smile, he feels the power coursing through his body and feels stronger. He finally finds Malik in the middle of the square and faces him with determination. The villain says that now he could easily defeat even a phantom beast. Amid the chaos, he orders his demons to not let a single person get away. A winged monster descends from the sky, targeting a man protecting a child. The boy creates a huge circle of fire that burns all the demons around him. With his face covered in flames, he protects the civilians who were in great danger. He then warns the enemy not to be mistaken about who he's about to face. With a serious look, the villain glares at the young apprentice in the middle of all the confusion. The boy declares that the monster's real opponent is him and no one else. The two stare each other down from a distance, preparing for a battle that will decide everything. Just then, the blue mana stone in his grimoire begins to glow with an intense light. Then, a green spell hits the demons that were flying through the city sky, but two ogres leap toward him, and he braces for a new magic attack. With a quick move, he summons chains of fire that bind the monsters. From afar, the villain mocks the boy, saying he doesn't stand a chance at this level. The boy replies that the one who should be begging is the one who has already lost once. Furious, the monster calls him a brat and sends more demons his way. With a direct hit, the young man strikes one of the ogres, sending it flying. Other mages arrive and recognize him, wondering if the villain is the leader of the attack. They then rush to help him and ask with concern if the boy is all right. From above, the enemy prepares a new spell with spikes to attack everyone. One of the mages shouts for everyone to get ready because the fugitive's attack is coming. He then pushes him away, saying an apprentice will only get in the way of the fight against the villain. With his grimoire in hand, the man prepares to fight the monster alone. The villain holds the red core, and the boy notices something important about it. Without wasting time, the young man places his own mana stone into the grimoire. The enemy's magic activates, and he says that small fry are no match for him. At that moment, the other mages invoke their spells and prepare for combat. The spells collide in a huge explosion of different colors and powers, but the young apprentice's magic seems stronger and stands out in the explosion. With a focused gaze, he controls his spell with mastery and total precision. The monster is hit head on by the combination of spells and can't defend itself. Then, a black liquid hits him square in the face, leaving him stunned. From the attack, the other mages are injured, but the monster is still standing. With a face full of rage, the villain glares at the young mage with his red eyes. The boy wonders how he's going to defeat an enemy that regenerates from every attack. He then realizes the secret lies in the red core the villain is using. With a keen eye, he focuses his attention on a specific point on the battlefield. The villain sees crystals on his shoulder and wonders where that ice came from. He realizes he was wrong from the start and looks at the gem on the ground. The vines grab the blue gem, and he realizes he didn't need it to fight. With a look of contempt, he says he was obsessed with something useless the whole time. With a single punch, he shatters the space around him as if it were thin, fragile glass. With an expression of pure shock, the boy cries out at the enemy's power. With the jewel in his hand, the villain boasts that it was too easy to take that power. With that, enormous thorny vines grow and completely surround the monster. He raises his hand and shows off his new power, which glows with a red energy. The villain then creates a whip of thorns and lightning, threatening to destroy everything there. With a wicked smile, he says he's going to burn them all until nothing is left. And after finishing off the mages, his next targets are the kingdom's phantom beasts. With this, he intends to wipe out all the beasts on the continent and become the king. The other mages watch the scene in terror, thinking it's the end of the human kingdoms, but the boy holds his mana stone and says with confidence that it's not over yet. With a determined look, he faces the enemy and calls him worthless trash. The young mage warns that he's going to send him where he belongs with his own 2 hands. The villain scoffs at him, saying that someone like him could never defeat him. The apprentice then touches the blue mana stone that is on top of his grimoire. With a serious look, he says he will find the phantom beasts no matter what. Suddenly, one of the enemy's vines pierces the boy's shoulder, injuring him. The monster taunts him, asking if the young man wasn't going to send him packing. Suddenly, a violent and overwhelming power takes over the boy's body. The energy flows inside him like a torrent of wild, uncontrolled magic. Just then, the mana stone in his grimoire begins to glow with an intense light. With his power, he can win, and the villain screams for him to just be gone. But the young mage doesn't flinch and prepares to release his contained magic. With a smile, he launches a wave of power toward the giant monster. Inside